deflation would only speed up. The rate of, in other words, instead of saying rate of deflation in this case, say the rate of abundance for society would only, because that's the output, more ideas, more hope, more. And so living in that paradigm would mean almost in time, virtually no need for money. It would be a staggering abundance, and Bitcoin is the path that allows us to get to that, because it's the only free market. That whatever relative value of Bitcoin that you think is today, as all prices fall against it forever, it's almost infinite if you could hold on to it long enough, because the purchasing power of it keeps on increasing. Yes, it'll be volatile.
Right now, the world feels like it's spinning off its axis. Chaos in the economy, corruption in the system, and confusion in the minds of millions. Yet, amid this madness, Bitcoin is breaking free, leading a 2025 bull run that's nothing short of historic. While governments drown in debt and central banks print money like it's oxygen, Bitcoin just shattered through $123,000, fueled by institutional FOMO and a wave of political revolution. The US now has a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Congress is pushing pro-crypto legislation, and ETF inflows have exploded past $14.8 billion. This isn't just a rally, this is a global awakening. And no one saw it coming clearer or earlier than Jeff Booth, the tech visionary who warned us in The Price of Tomorrow. He exposed the lie at the heart of our economy, a system that should be making life easier, cheaper, and better through technology, but instead traps us in rising prices and evaporating futures. Why? Because the system is built on debt, and deflation is its death sentence. Jeff realized something powerful. Bitcoin isn't just a better asset, it's the escape hatch from a rigged machine. It's incorruptible, decentralized, and aligned with technology itself. What central banks fear, Bitcoin embraces. Where fiat steals your time, Bitcoin stores it. This week, as whales buy up over 77,000 Bitcoin and MicroStrategy adds another $472 million to its pile, it's clear. This isn't a bubble. It's a breakout, the financial singularity Jeff warned us would come, and it's only just begun. Now, let's watch clips from Jeff Booth's interview to gain more insight. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and enable notifications for more in-depth content. Thanks for joining us again. Enjoy the rest of the video.
Yeah, if you read it today, you can see everything that I predicted is just coming true, kind of at the pace that I said it would come true. And it's driven by productivity increasing, exponentially increasing, and that productivity should be flowing to society in the form of lower prices. And if that was the case, then every single human on this planet would get richer by that productivity rate every year, even if they didn't work, right? So they would just get richer the natural state of a free market is deflation, and everyone would get richer by that productivity rate every year. That's but the existing system has to capture that productivity, because if you allowed deflation from it, the existing credit system would completely collapse. So it has to continually manipulate money at a faster and faster rate, actually offsetting the productivity rate, which concentrates wealth into very few hands, very few businesses. Then government spending becomes everything, as it's not a free market at all. It's a control system. Actually, I want to highlight what I just said a little bit more. Anything that stops the productivity rate from flowing to society is not an economic system. Mm-hmm. It's a control system. So no matter what you call it, it's a control system. So the natural state of a free market is deflation. And in that world, we would get richer through creating value for each other and using the things that create most value. And we trade with each other all over the world, and it would just keep on reducing prices everywhere. That is that's very negative for a system that extracts time control from you, because all of those jobs that require people to tell you what to do go away. So what's happening in Bitcoin is people are finding a different reality. one filled with hope, truth, hope, and abundance. And as they're moving to it, they're more and more people are finding that. Now, we're really early, and most people, and it's easy to simply, hope is way more powerful than fear. I talked about this for 10 years before I wrote the book, and at that time it was like glossy eyes. Yeah, you're a crazy person. Completely, you're a crazy person. What compelled me to write the book is watching things get worse and worse, and then projecting how much worse they would get from the existing system, because they were exponential patterns, and seeing what that would do for my kids and the world at large from that system. So I did not want to write that book. I felt I had to write that book. And when I was writing the book, I remember I was from the technology system. I was all of the people inside this thing that still today can't see it because they're enriched by it. Many of those people, this was my cohort, and it meant it went turning against those people in my truth, but I had to. And out of that, once you see an insight like that, and it is really simple, right? It's really simple. And maybe some of the big things in life, and those breakthroughs are simple. They've always been there. They've always been self-evident. And it just clicked for people, and a whole bunch of people realized that was true. Now, I will say this: people, even today, I get all the time that people, they knew what I was saying was true, but it took them like 3 years to actually fully comprehend how much depth that meant, because it changes everything. I get that too, because we don't have, if we say 5,000 years of human history, and all of our knowledge is built on previous knowledge, and all the books we read, and all of those books we read contain error codes from the financial system and the economic system and the political systems we've always been in, then all of our neurons fire against that. We don't have the architecture to hang new thoughts and new paradigm off of. And so what I was introducing is a new paradigm. And so that mental architecture almost has to be developed. You have to, even if it's intuitive, now you have to think, what does that mean? And then what does this thing mean to it? What is the next thing? And that process in rewiring your brain and unlearning all of the things that you've known is a challenging process. I remember I did hold a little bit of Bitcoin before that, but I realized but yeah, to your point, I really started to discover it, and I felt like people don't go to a solution without knowing the problem, right? It's really hard to get somebody to be open to a solution if they don't know a problem. And about people in the Western world, we're sitting on the benefit side of that problem to, say, South America, and they had no idea. They had no idea that they were essentially stealing money, and you had modern day economics. You had modern day slavery through an economic system that made it okay, and then you donate a little bit of your money to somewhere over there, and you just go on. You go on with your day, not knowing that there's a consequence to your actions, and that you're actually stealing. You're part of a system of total corruption in the world. So, and you can sleep at night because you say you've donated to those poor people who can't save themselves, when it was in fact your economic system that was driving. So those are hard truths that people don't want to admit to, or even if they admit it, oh, that's too big a problem, I don't want to. They'll just move past it. But if you sit with that hard truth, and then there's a solution, I would say, I want to be careful here, so I'd actually have to say it. But if you know that there's a solution to that hard truth, and you're not actively moving through the solution, you kind of have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, what are you doing? Right. And so if you're complaining about the world around you in that world, and immigration and what the world looks like and how there's misinformation everywhere and how it seems to be dividing. And you're making that stronger. You might want to look in the mirror.
To Jeff, Bitcoin isn't some get-rich-quick scheme or Wall Street game. It's a protocol rooted in energy and mathematics, something completely outside government manipulation, with a fixed supply and a decentralized structure that can't be changed, faked, or inflated. That means Bitcoin begins to reprice the entire world, not because it's exploding in value, but because everything else is imploding. When Bitcoin crosses $123,000 and hits millions in collapsing currencies like the Argentine peso, it's not a bubble, it's reality snapping into focus. Fiat is failing, Bitcoin is simply revealing the truth. This current bull run isn't just driven by hype, it's fueled by global demand for something real. While ETFs pull in billions in inflows, and governments like the US begin stacking sats into strategic reserves, the deeper story is that Bitcoin has become the anchor in a storm of inflation. And this isn't just for traders or institutions. As Bitcoin rises, prices fall relative to it. That means anyone holding it gains real purchasing power. This is not speculation. It's monetary gravity pulling us toward a future that rewards saving and value creation. Meanwhile, new tech like Fedimint and the Lightning Network are scaling Bitcoin for everyone, fast, cheap, and private. Communities are forming digital cooperatives, acting like modern banks without needing permission. The bull run is loud, but the revolution, that's whispering beneath it, and it's unstoppable. Let's watch more clips from Jeff Booth's interview.
So even Bitcoin, owning it, let's say owning it in an ETF is step one. You're trying to make money in the financial system. And you're not actually secured with Bitcoin because you don't have your own keys. So and then level two is and maybe you own some other Ethereum and everything else. So layer two, you only own Bitcoin and ETF. Layer three, you move to self-custody. As you go down that path and you realize it's a completely independent financial system that's and protocol that's emerging alongside the other one, and it's repricing the other one. As you go down level by level by level, you never go back. And you're deep. So now if you just take all of the Bitcoiners, there's a whole bunch of Bitcoiners that are going to sell their Bitcoin for homes because they think now I can get a home. But they fail to grasp that home is massively overvalued in the fiat system, and it's marginal. It's falling to its utility value in Bitcoin. And if they just waited another 3 or 4 years, they could buy 20 homes. And so, why will it distribute? It'll distribute forever because of that. And if most Bitcoiners don't know that, and every single person that you're talking to is just at step one, new people, then we are so infinitely early on. It's repricing the entire system. So how much is the entire system in today's purchasing dollars? It's $900 trillion balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
That $900 trillion balance sheet has $400 trillion of debt. If you paid back the debt at $1 a second, it would take 12,873 years to pay back. By the way, in my book, in 2019, the debt was only $250 trillion. And in my book, the preceding 20 years had $185 trillion of growth in debt. So as technology was moving faster, debt had to offset the other side. So in 4 years or 5 years, we've had an extra, it took 20 years before, now we've had an extra $150 trillion of debt. We're about to hit a cycle that is going to be staggering. So now if you take that $900 trillion so you can just, and it's not a perfect example, but just imagine somebody purchasing every day and they own their house free and clear title, and it's in that 100 trillion, or if they own enough equity in their home, then they feel like they can purchase, borrow against home, so that would be a good proxy for how wealthy people feel, right? Those assets minus but those assets include all the banks, about every business, every building that you see in downtown, a corner store, your house. It includes everything globally, 900 trillion. And so the purchasing power of that, if Bitcoin replaces that, and all Bitcoin has to do to stay decentralized and secure, and it will inevitably reprice everything. So if it stays decentralized and secure, then that purchasing power of today's Bitcoin is 43 per Bitcoin. It's actually probably higher than that because you lost coins and everything else out of the division. So 900 trillion divided by 21 million, you get 43 million. Now we both know, or anybody that's followed the financial system knows, it cannot stay at 900 trillion. The debt stay at 400 trillion. It has to exponentially increase to be able to keep you locked in. 900 trillion might be 2 quadrillion in 5 years. Right. Now, if it is, and Bitcoin's value is now, instead of 43 million per coin, it's 95 million, 94 million per coin. That purchasing power hasn't changed. It's the same purchasing power. But the more important thing is, so when people price Bitcoin through the piece of paper being devalued, I've just at a loss for words, right? It's because it's impossible to price something with all of the with these moving parts, when in fact it is repricing everything. But the bigger part of what we talked about before is all prices relative to that $43 million per coin fall forever. And so the purchasing value of that increases forever. Probably the biggest is the knowledge that the new system and this conversation we're having right now, you almost have to reprogram your brain to understand what's happening. And once you do, then it's easy. It's easy to see everywhere, and you move all your. But I also understand if through 5,000 years of history we've never seen something like this, it would be hard to see, right? I use in presentations often when Galileo built a telescope to look outside of the system everyone else was in. He looked like a crazy person, even though he was right. And as people looked through telescopes, more people realized. So Bitcoin's almost a telescope, right? Mm-hmm. And people are looking through the telescope, and they're not going back to the old version of reality. Now, so that is essentially, like I said before, the developing the mental scaffolding to understand, to understand where it takes us to be able to move more of your time and energy into it. And then, like you, like me, I for a long time I call myself a hypocrite, because I was talking. I wrote the book. I was talking all over the world on why this was so important, and all of my time and energy was going on into essentially fiat-based companies, because that's where my boards were. That was where my previous investments were, and everything. And so I was spending that time in helping companies I cared about, entrepreneurs I cared about, but it was misallocated to the world up. Great. And why I say is waking up one night and realizing that, like, and so how could I complain about anybody else doing the same thing when I was doing? I had a hedge. I had a hedge against the system collapse, but with my energy, I was making the system collapse happen faster, right? And so I moved my time through creating ego death capital, so that I could commit it to Bitcoin and accelerate that. Now that said, it's been so positive, because then you meet people like Obi, you meet people like Roy from Breeze, and you're able to invest in technologies that solve problems that way before people can even see that those are needed. And they come out and they solve the next problem.
Now, Jeff believes the biggest challenge now isn't technical, it's psychological, because people are still measuring everything in a broken unit, in paper currencies that are losing value fast. They are trapped in fear, thinking they need permission to escape. But Jeff says they don't. They can walk into this new world at any time, and the first step is learning why Bitcoin matters. Not just buying an ETF hoping it goes up, but really understanding the deeper reason, the why behind it all. Because when you do, everything changes. Jeff tells new people to start simple, to run a node, attend meetups, learn about Fedimint, or open protocols like Nostr. The more time you spend in this space, the more it feels like the future is already here. You start to see that the people building this world are not just developers. They're visionaries creating tools that make opting out easier than staying in. Jeff says, whatever time you're spending on this now, double it, because it's worth it. When you zoom out and look at the global numbers, it's both terrifying and eye-opening at the same time, because the system we live in today is sitting on over $900 trillion of assets, but it's burdened by over $400 trillion in debt. That debt is growing at breakneck speed, adding $150 trillion in just the last 5 years. This weight is crushing the system from the inside, slowly breaking everything it touches. While Bitcoin, with only 21 million coins ever, is quietly repricing the entire global economy, shifting value toward a protocol that can't be inflated or controlled. In real terms, that means Bitcoin has the potential to reach tens of millions of dollars per coin, not because of hype, but due to mathematical principles. The thing is, while fiat currencies lose value over time, Bitcoin's purchasing power increases indefinitely because prices fall about it, not rise. But Jeff says this isn't just about getting rich, and that's the point people often miss. Because the real goal isn't money, it's freedom, it's time, it's creating a system that finally works for everyone, where the benefits of technology reach the people, not governments, monopolies, or central banks. In that kind of world, abundance isn't a fantasy, it's just what happens naturally. Bitcoin becomes the base layer for that future, the foundation on which everything else is built. Right now, developers are building those layers rapidly: payments, identity, privacy, community. And Jeff says it still amazes him that he gets to be part of this moment, watching the old world collapse and the new one take shape. Because the truth is, the system most people depend on is collapsing under the weight of its own lies, debts, and broken incentives. While that's scary, it's also what opens the door to something better. Bitcoin is that door, the one real path forward, built on truth, energy, cooperation, and honesty. Jeff calls Bitcoin the telescope, the tool that lets you see into the future if you're willing to look through it. Once you do, it's hard to unsee, because the world you discover isn't some far-off dream. It's already being built by people just like you. People are moving their time and energy into a future that isn't controlled by anyone. And the best part is, you don't need permission, because the escape hatch is wide open. The only question is, will you take the time to step through it? Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.